Welcome to the Scottish Watches podcast. We're here live in Geneva at Watches and Wonders 2026. Dave is with me. How are you?
Dave is good. We are trying to bring everything to you as quickly as possible this year rather than wait till the week after. So each day we're going to be recording a little segment of things that we've seen either that day or just the day before so that we can have it fresh in our memories. But remember, do check the show notes out because the actually correct information is more likely to be in the show notes.
You're getting ahead of yourself. I don't think that's true. But yeah, look in the show notes anyway. Miziel does a fantastic job of misspelling everything that we talk about. Tons to catch up on. Obviously, people want to find about Rolex, Patek, Tudor, but those weren't the ones that stuck out for myself and Dave. We have completed day one, or half of day one, by the time we actually got across to Switzerland, but Rolex was on the tip of everyone's tongue. They were the guys that released stuff a little bit early. They appeared in adverts across Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube, and there was a lot of things about maybe the Yachtmaster, a new Daytona. Perhaps some things had been retired from the catalogue that people love, some firm favourites from the past. But yeah, where should we start then? Should we talk about the new stuff or the things that disappeared?
Well, let's talk about the things that have disappeared, because I guess there's probably a lot of people out in that wide world that are waiting or hoping that they might get themselves a Pepsi-orientated bezeled watch. Well, they're not going to be getting one now, because 12 years after, well, the latest iteration or family of Pepsis were introduced, that being, of course, precious metal, with the steel one coming in.
My precious.
My precious. I think 5-6 years ago, the steel one was added to the range. Well, they're all gone now. I'm sure probably not forever. Got a feeling it will come back at some point. Who knows when? But as of now, if you're waiting for a Pepsi, the chances are, well, you're not going to get one. I think also the blue bezeled, can never remember what these are called, because as people know, Rolex is not my big area of expertise, but the blue bezeled one, that's gone as well. Can't remember. Cookie Monster, I think that one's called. It's disappeared from the range. But there's a new chronograph, which is a bit of a strange mix of materials, which maybe puts it in the middle of the price tier of that model.
It's a new Daytona, obviously Cosmograph, and that is the linchpin of the Rolex collection. Everybody looks to get that. That's the one I was on the waiting list for so long. Finally got the call recently, thankfully, and I have got the, well, we should probably do a wrist check, even though I'm not wearing a Rolex just now, and you can go first for a change.
Well, I've got nothing on this wrist, which is the wrist that apparently most people should wear their watches on, but I'm wearing a prototype of my latest work watch, which is the Horage Tourbillon 3, and this is in the mint Fizz, which actually has been attracting a bit of attention in terms of the colour. People seem to like this colour. This is the mint Fizz. I'm sure Miziel will put some nice pictures in the show notes because he's got access to some nice pictures of it. But yes, wearing this one, it's a new introduction into the range. You just actually looked out your Tourbillon 1 out of the safe, secure storage facility that is Fort Rikki, and it's back out on the wrist. Well, not today, it's on the wrist, but...
Well, today I'm wearing something not borrowed, but something blue, and it's the Moser Streamliner Scottish Watches Memeliner edition. The reason I'm wearing this is because we're going to talk about Moser. We visited them yesterday, didn't know what they were up to, perhaps thought there was an April Fool's joke that had landed a little bit late, but no, it turned out to be true to form, so we'll pump that information out to you guys shortly. Moving back to Rolex, many different things, PVD coating, green dials. They introduced what was the puzzle collection a few years back. They have brought that back. Everyone's running around with tote bags with those images everywhere. It's been a bit of a lukewarm start. Tudor, quite lukewarm, although they have played right into their 100 years, their heritage, their Royale stuff that they've done in the past. But let's just finish up on Rolex because, yeah, dropping the Pepsi, dropping various things there, but they've done this across the range. They dropped the Batman back in 2019, waited a couple of years, brought it out, replaced the Oyster with the Jubilee, so who knows what they may get up to. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing like the last couple of years where perhaps they brought out titanium versions, they brought out clear case backs. Those were things that set the world on fire, which for Rolex, small movements, it's iterations, it's like the Porsche 911, it moves forward at a gradual pace because it's almost perfection. You can't really change it up too much. And when I say almost perfection, I mean that by the case that people actually put their names on waiting lists, they wait. And in the space of, we were talking about this the other day, in the space of perhaps precious metal, the Daytona, the price delta from 4 years ago to just now could be as much as 15k on a watch that was around about the early 20s just a few years back. So anything else on Rolex we want to cover? Because we have to get through it so much in this episode.
No, I mean, obviously check the show notes out. There's some pictures will be in there. I think the most garish of the dials is this. I don't know even how to describe it. It's like a kind of collage of quite bright colours. They're back this year, the little tote bags that they give away at these kind of events. It's definitely the most un-Rolex bag. It looks like it's from a trendy brand, doesn't it? And I kept catching these and going, oh, that's a good looking bag. And then finally discovered, oh, it's the Rolex bag, which is a bit unusual. And they've got a dial. That's their latest puzzle watch. It's not a puzzle watch, but it's that kind of vibe and feel about it. A bit fun and friendly, and a few other cool things coming. But let's have a chat about the brands that we visited over the last half day, because we saw some cool stuff.
So we came in late because of flights from Scotland are obviously terrible. You've got to pick and choose when you can come in. And we immediately ran to Palais Expo. That is the convention centre where they hold Watches and Wonders, amongst various other things. In the past, it used to be SIHH, which was the smaller version of, along with Baselworld. And they've had the Geneva Motor Show here up until it kind of fell by the wayside a couple of years ago and is no longer in Geneva. But in the place itself, it was a little bit easier to get in. It's as if they have refined the entry process for the journalists, the media, the retailers. And the first protocol was to pop in and see the folks at Armin Strom. Last year when we came in, we got to have a look at this purple, well, I wouldn't say purple-headed monster, but it was a monster and it was purple. We got a little comic book to go along with it. This time around, it wasn't playing in the low digits, price-wise. This was, as we confirmed, their most expensive watch yet.
Yes, and this was the 1259 Anytime, I think is the official name, and it is a chiming watch. 4 gongs, it's a titanium case, and they explained that was to keep it light and wearable. A little bit smaller than previously. They also, I think the first time they did a chiming watch was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, can't remember exactly, 2018, 2019 maybe, I think they said, and it was bigger. This one's come down. It's still a bigger watch, but of course it's chiming. It's got 4 gongs in it. It's got their kind of resonance technology that you would expect to see, of course, in their more premium pieces. And the little trick on this one is, of course, when you've got that chiming watch that you can tell the hours, the quarters, and the minutes, you want it to do the biggest trick it's got, which is, well, 1259, because it's got the most noise and music going on about it. But of course, if you want it to do that, you have to move the hands and reset everything. And they've got a little function on the slider that lets you choose between the real time, i.e. whatever time it is of the day. So it might chime once if it's 1 o'clock, for example, or you can set it to 1259 with a press of a button, little red indicator on the dial, which means that you can have it play that full, well, 1259 chime whenever you want it to. So it's quite cool, a little bit different. I think around the 370,000 Swiss franc mark. So definitely in the punchier end of this wonderful world of watch collecting that we're in. They're only going to make, I think they said 25. And if I remember rightly, they suggested they could make 2 or 3 of them a year. Everything hand finished in it. It really is at the top end, the pinnacle of what Armin Strom do. Of course, they're based in Biel-Bienne in the centre of Switzerland. Cool watch. Check out the show notes to see pictures of that one. And after there, where do we head to?
Well, before you get ahead of yourself, Dave, I will chime in again. Do you like that? Do you like that? That's a good one, wasn't it? I've been holding that, I've been waiting that for a while.
You just wanted to chime in.
I did want to do that.
Jesus.
It was a really cool watch. I liked it. Didn't like the price point because everyone's been a little bit careful at the moment. So this was a jump for those guys. It wasn't a jumper, but it was a jump. And in a market where things are a little bit more cautious, it's a big ask. So obviously they're going to build to order. They talked about lead times of around about 6 months, which makes complete sense. But nowadays, you can be waiting 6 months for something common or garden almost. So good to see them pushing forward. A lot of people were pulling back a little bit this year. We did notice a bit of a regression this year, obviously, with people been hedging their bets a little bit, making sure that they don't put too much forward because they're maybe not selling as many things as they had done in the past. So good to see Armin Strom pushing ahead, whereas last year kind of just changed the colour to purple. Now, where do we go from there?
So first of all, we went to see Frederique Constant, and the first thing they showed us was, well, something for the ladies. This was a kind of bracelet-style watch, a couple of different variations, stainless steel. You also had a kind of PVD 18-karat gold. But the one that caught my eye was one of the gold ones with a turquoise dial. Really good. The kind of, I'm not usually a fan of these super yellow gold watches, but that dial really just distracted you from the yellow of the gold going on, and it really did work. Nice looking watch. They range from, I think, around the £1,500 to around the £2,000 mark. Quite nice if you like that kind of jewellery style watch. Nice to see something like that being available for real reasonable money. And then they showed us, well, their all new Worldtimer. and it's got a new movement. They've really upped the power reserve. I think initially they were in the 30-something hours, and they're up into the 70 hours now. They've dropped the date function to clean it up, a few different variants. I mean, Rikki had different opinions. There was one that was a kind of dark blue, very conservative with a bracelet, one that had the lighter blues, dark blues, and white mixed together. That was the one that caught my eye, and the one that neither of us really gelled with, which was the diamond bezeled one, but that's a different story. Great value for a well-spec'd, in-house, decent performance Worldtimer. If I remember, it was in and around the 4,500 mark, something like that. So, really strong value proposition for a good in-house Worldtimer. And then we got to see the guys at Alpine.
We did, sister brand, and this is part of the larger Citizen group. You've got Citizen, you've got La Juperie, you've got Arnold & Son, Angelus, Frederique Constant, and Alpina. There's a whole load in there. And people don't really mix them together in their mind. You think of Rolex, you think of Tudor, you think of Omega, Longines, etc., etc. But the Citizen group, they're doing amazing. We keep saying this, Grand Seiko should be Grand Citizen for what they put together. And these pilot watches we got to look at, they were not crazy expensive. But if you looked at them, you didn't look at the brand logo on it, you perhaps looked at a Bremont, something like that. We're looking side by side, and it's less than half the price.
Yeah, I think these were in and around the £1,000 mark. There was 4 different kind of colourways, I suppose, on them. 2 of them caught my eye. You'll never guess. It was the greens and the browns. Shock horror. David likes greens and browns. But then there was one that was more in kind of, I think, a black PVD case with a black dial. Not my vibe, probably more Rikki's. He likes all black. And yeah, they had a soft leather NATO strap option. They had different colours of leather straps. For, I guess, it's not a field watch because it is a proper pilot style watch, but it did have that field watch vibe to it. So if you're in that market where there's lots of stuff like Hamilton and there's lots of options in and around that 1,000 mark, it's definitely something that's, well, worthy of a little look. And they had a big aviation theme, but they also had some other themes going on. Lots of things that Rikki likes, like video games and arcade games and all sorts of things.
Well, that was round the corner where they actually had, this is weird, they invited us into one side and they had a good presentation at the beginning. It was jewellers, screwdrivers and tools, not life-size, double life-size at the front, really drew you into where they were. And that was the Frederique Constant stuff. And you look at it, and in my mind, I place them alongside the likes of Oris, Raymond Vale. They produce very, very good stuff, pretty inexpensive price point. You get a lot of value for money, but they haven't really popped yet. People don't talk about them. And it's one of those, well, that's a really nice watch. Who makes it? Because the name on the dial just doesn't stand out enough yet. But then we went around the other side, where they had, as Dave mentions, it was like going back in time to a bygone era, or the nostalgia you have in your mind, the rose-tinted viewpoint of the past, where you think of something, and it doesn't actually marry up with maybe the video from the 1980s, where I think of arcades and stuff like that. This was the ideal version of it. You had Galaga machines, reminded me of, I think it was one of the Avengers movies, where Tony Stark says, that guy in the corner's playing Galaga. The doors sitting there, free to play. Then they had all this cool tile pixelization, the people that were actually at the brand working the booth, that they were all wearing these cool outfits. It really stood out to me, but it was almost hidden around the side, which was a real shame. And obviously a guy that likes video games, and having recently, if you're a UK person, you know what I'm about to say, recently caught up with Dominic Diamond of Games Master fame, who set the scene, kicked things off in the 1990s here in the UK when it comes to video games on television. So it kind of brought everything full circle. They actually, talking about going in a full circle, they showed us a pilot style watch that we're not really allowed to talk about for about a month. But in a day and age when you're looking for something, you're looking for pub ammo, you're looking for something to talk about, and everything's the same. Well, they've actually created something brand new with a watch to do with aviation, and it ain't going to break the bank, and it will be fantastic pub ammo when you go to an event, you go to a meetup, or you just want to sit there and play with a fidget spinner.
From there, though, we headed off to those guys at Panerai.
We went into the deep a little bit, and we're talking deep pockets if you want to buy some of these watches. We go around different brands. We don't speak about Panerai much on the show because they don't really communicate with us, they don't send as much. And the watches, being quite honest, a little bit like Rolex, they're a bit samey. You can tell what Panerai is by looking at Panerai. So we sat in and we wanted to be educated to learn stuff, and they had some brand new technology. They were talking about this, that and the other. I'm looking for something a little bit more, maybe gets my creativity going, because we've seen a million watches. We want to see something new. And one of the standouts thus far for me at the show itself is a Panerai that's got 31, not hours, days of power reserve.
Yeah, they showed a few things you would probably expect from them. couple of my highlights were they did a destro, that being the crown on the opposite side, with actually a really nice blue dial. It wasn't anything that you wouldn't expect, to be honest, from the brand. It had all the DNA that you would expect from a Luminor, I think it was. And great looking watch, nice colour dial. I like that kind of offhand crown. Yeah, really cool. I think it was at 8,000 or 9,000. Don't know if I'd want to pay 8,000 or 9,000 for that watch, but nonetheless, decent looking watch. And they were a little bit smaller, leaning into some of their heritage. They had a couple of nice, definitely vintage inspired dial colours in there, these kind of bronze. They're kind of leaning into that patinaed look and that kind of tropic patina that you get in some really old watches. But as Rikki mentioned, probably the highlight was a watch that was altogether too big, too thick, too expensive, but cool nonetheless. 31 days. I think they said it takes something like 120 something full turns of the crown to wind it up, which is a lot. Let's not be wrong. But then they pointed out you only actually need to do that 12 times a year, which kind of takes the sting out of it. And of course, you'll probably only wind it partially. You'll wind it fully up and then maybe every week you'll top it up. So you're never having to dial it in that much. Lots of skeletonizing. I think it was 4 barrels, if I remember rightly. You had this display in the front. And the other bit...
here we come. Dave's favourite part.
There was a date disc on it that you can't see, but it was polarized, I believe, a bit like the old sunglass lens technology, where you had this polarized date in this little window at 3 o'clock, and you could see the date perfectly there, but you couldn't see the date disc anywhere else. It was, silly, of course, not needed, not necessary, but nonetheless, it was a cool little feature to it. But I think that watch was definitely towards the punchier end of the price spectrum.
You say that, but this was the other thing. We were relative, everything is relative. When we were sitting there, we were playing the guessing game, the how much game, and there was a watch and it was $8,000, and then there was another watch that was $10,000, and we couldn't really discern the differences apart from colour. And then something came in and it was a collection, it was a vintage inspired collection, there's going to be 30 sets available, and it was like 140, 130,000 Swiss francs, and we were like, oh, that's punchy. So when they actually revealed the price point of the 31-day model, and it was around about 90,000.
95, I think it was.
When it was around about 95,000 Swiss francs, that didn't seem quite as bad. But the technology was really good, and there was a couple of other parts that were built into what they were talking about. The technology they've developed for no reason other than because we can, and we've talked recently about you shouldn't do just because you can, you should do because it's wanted and needed. I liked it. And Panerai has not really invigorated me anyway at all in many, many years. And looking at the lattice structure, a little bit like the Horage that Dave's wearing just now, it's got a lattice structure where it's skeletonized through, but it's got this mesh net type system. It appealed to me. And Panerai have never really done that. And their display stand was fantastic. You'll see in the video on YouTube and probably on Instagram a clip of Dave almost drowning.
Almost. Kind of not. But the other one we forgot to mention was they had one that had an interesting case. It was a mix of grade 2 and grade 5 titanium that they had rolled the metals together, and it gave a Damascus style effect, if you know what that is, where you've kind of got these different metals folded together. So you had this
licorice. It's like an old sweet.
Yeah, it's like when you mix different candies together, but it had this kind of very fluid wave-like pattern, I think they described it as. And I don't know if there's any real engineering benefit to mixing grade 2 and grade 5 titanium, to be honest with you, but nonetheless, cool looking case. That was a little bit different, a little bit funky as well. What you need to remember is Panerai is part of a group that also has the likes of IWC in it, who are well known for their materials technology. And of course, these brands, there's a little bit of cross-sharing goes on here as well. So Panerai is one of these brands that they don't tend to focus on what they do technically too much with materials and stuff. It's more about this whole dive and the frogman story and all of these things that they hark back to all the time. But when you look a little bit under the sheets, under the skin, there is a little bit more going on sometimes than you would give it credit for. The other thing as well, you have to, of course, like that aesthetic because their DNA is strong. That's a good and a bad thing. If you like them, it's definitely a good thing because it's a Panerai from quite a long distance away. If you don't like that kind of cushion shape, well, it's probably not the brand for you. But nonetheless, yep, they brought us something that we weren't expecting, which of course is effectively a 1 month power reserve, which is pretty cool, to be honest with you.
Before we move on, a little bit of a technical point on there, and props to Panerai here. As much as we said the price point was up and down, that's completely up to them. It's their own prerogative to do that. They were explaining the technical details in a succinct way that even people in the room that were not technically advanced, myself and Dave included, we could follow along. They had charts, they had explanations, and the presenter, although not a native English speaker, was phenomenal. And they explained with this 31 days, it's actually more like 35, 36 days, but they cut off the start of it, they cut off the end of it, so that you've only got that power band in the middle where everything is accurate. It's not going to run too quick or too slow, which is a great idea. But where should we go next?
Well, after that, we headed off to, well, the brand that Rikki's wearing. That is Moser. And we went to see what they were up to because, well, they had a few things that, as Rikki mentioned, we thought could potentially have been late April Fool's jokes and a bit of other stuff, which was not expected, but I think is going to make a few people very happy. And, well, we got to see a watch that we talked about, I think probably around about 4 to 6 weeks ago. We said we hadn't seen it yet, and we got to see it finally in person. And, oh boy, it was worth the wait. So let's start with maybe the crazy April Fool's not joke.
Let's not. Let's take the clock back a little bit further because we're walking around, we're tired, we're actually humping our suitcases with us because we've come directly from the airport. We've not gone to the hotel to drop in, I changed in the toilets from my comfies
Classy,
into something.
Rikki, classy.
Keeping it classy, Dave. But we bumped into Second as he was roaming around. And he had a quick chat with us and introduced us to the gentleman that was beside him. And this gentleman happens to be one of the movers and shakers in the sneaker industry, along with various other things. And a little bit of information was divulged about this Moser collab that, again, on paper, if it had come out a couple of weeks ago, we would have went, well done, Moser, you've done a great April Fool's joke. But it turns out, playing back into the past, which the guys there have done many times, not just within the Moser, but within the Hotlands line, they've gone back to the mid-80s. They've gone back to the Reebok pump, the trainer where you actually had the little basketball-style pump on the tongue and you would just pump the thing up and go for it. That kind of disappeared because obviously trainer technology moved forward. A bit of a gimmick, it was a bit of fun. Again, cool things that we like to talk about. But they've incorporated a pump system into a watch.
Yes, probably the collab that, well, nobody saw coming, including us. This is, of course, Moser x Reebok. The brand that was ultra cool in the 80s, 90s, kind of fell out of trend and fashion. And it's one of these brands that keeps popping its head back up every few years and then disappears again. I remember these pumps from, well, I wanted a pair when I was in my youth. Very trendy, very expensive. Only, it was basketball technology, as Rikki mentions. It would be basketball. They only did these mids and highs, and it was all about that heyday age of when all the brands were getting into, well, basketball, making themselves world famous. And they've come back, and they've got this pump watch. It's a Streamliner. And of course, well, both of us love Streamliners. Many people love the Streamliner. There's a white one and a black one. And we thought initially, oh, is one ceramic? The white one we thought was maybe ceramic. The black one we thought was carbon. Turns out we were both wrong. They're neither or none. And we got into the presentation. And what we've actually got is a forged quartz. Both of them are forged quartz. It's got an effect of carbon, but you can, well, colour it. And the white one, it looks like white ceramic until you get up close, and then you can see this textural pattern in it. The black one, the texture is much more obvious, I would say, from a distance.
Looks more like forged carbon.
It does, definitely looks like carbon. You've got the black dial on the black case, you've got the white dial on the white case, and down at 8 o'clock, I think it is, there's this little sticking out pump, and it says pump on it, same font, Reebok, etc. And there is, that's how you wind the watch up. It's weird. It works. It's tactile. You push it. It's got a nice feel to it, and you can hear it as you push it. You can hear the winding going on. It still has a crown at 3 o'clock. Of course, that's so that you can set the time on the watch, and you've got little curved power reserve again just on the dial at 8 o'clock as well. So as you pump it up, this little orange power reserve fills up the watch. It's very much Streamliner. Other than that, 40 millimeters, so it's that classic size, the same as the one Rikki's wearing. It doesn't come in a bracelet. This comes either in a white or a black rubber strap, which I think gives it that sportier vibe and feel. And it comes along with a limited edition pair of, well, Reebok pumps. They did point out it's the first time they've ever done a Reebok pump in a low shoe, so a regular trainer, I guess, for most people. There's a white pair and a black pair. You get a matching set to go along with your watch. You get to choose your size, etc. And it's got the Moser kind of embossed logo on the heel. The inside of the shoe bed has got lots of Moser stuff going on in there and watch movements, and I think there's also a little Moser logo on the side. Check out the show notes because we did manage to get our hands on a pair and get some pictures of it. Lots of pictures of the watch in real life as well. Really, really cool. You're going to love it or hate it, to be honest with you. Some folk are going to go, oh, it's a bit, same as people don't like Snoopies and people don't like cartoon characters and watches. If you're not into that whole kitsch thing, you're probably not going to like it, but personally I thought this was just epic. Can't decide between the black and the white, to be honest. They've both got highs and lows, but great looking watch. Anything you want to say on that before we go on to the more regular things that you would maybe expect from Moser?
I do. And we've got to give props to Moser because in previous iterations of Watches and Wonders, they sat within an Independence Hall where they had a smaller scale booth, I would call it, a large booth but still smaller scale. This time around, they had taken up one of the larger areas, and we're talking large in the size of maybe Montblanc in the past, or one of these really highfalutin, part of a conglomerate where they've got bags and bags of cash. It was not a cheap exercise. We do not know how much it cost, but it looked fantastic. It was glamorous. It was glorious. And the way they had their booth set out, there was only one problem with it. They had these things hanging down like hot air balloons, and you could easily walk into them. Thankfully, not done that yet, but the booth was great. And so far, swag-wise, they have given it the best swag. Usually we get tote bags. There are many tote bags kicking around. This was an inflatable bag based again on the pump system. And when we went into the presentation room and we're speaking to Claire and we're speaking to Natalia and everybody that was there, they're just on it with everything they do. And there wasn't a single question, because me and Dave like to throw out the oddball questions, there wasn't a single thing that we asked that they couldn't answer there and then. And the presentation flowed, they passed the watches round, then they passed these sneakers round. And like you mentioned, inside we spotted right down where the toes go inside the shoe, you could see the movement had been printed inside. It's the attention to detail on the outside heel of the shoe at the top part, and not really up on sneaker terminology. They had the Moser, but again, like the watches, they ghosted it. They didn't have it inked, they had it embossed, so you could barely just see it. Everything about it was great. And then a little bit like we talked about Frederique a minute ago, they decided to lower the size of things, and Claire was quite keen to point out, this is the first time they've managed to advertise their Streamliners on a woman's wrist. Now, I know a lot of women that love the Streamliner. They try and wear it as much as possible when they can, but there are other people out there that maybe have got thinner wrists, or they like the classic stuff. We're big proponents of wear what you like. Don't try and force somebody to wear a particular size of watch or style of watch. If a woman wants to wear something that's pinked and shrinked, cool, that's fine. If it's my wife, she'll wear a 42mm Nobel out with a different outfit. It doesn't matter. Plus, she's got some dinky ones. Well, she's got cool long jeans and whatnot. So to see Moser having everything from the Streamliners that they brought out just now with the Reebok stuff, right the way down to what Dave's about to talk about.
Yes, indeed. When the Streamliner first came out, it was a chronograph, and that was in the bigger 42, 43mm size. They then, of course, brought out the time only in that 40mm, and I think the small seconds version's even fractionally smaller, 39 point something. But they've now brought out definitively smaller models, a 34mm, which I think is going to appeal to more guys than probably you think. A lot of people with smaller wrists, maybe is the best way to describe, who are going to like that 34, really nice size, and a 28, which is, I think they're definitely aiming it at a more feminine market. And that's not to say you couldn't wear it as a guy. You could, because it looks like just a small Streamliner, to be honest with you. And both of those had very cool dials. One was a kind of silvery, titanium-y type textured pattern on the dial with a fume effect. And one was, I don't know how you describe it, purpley, raspberry. I don't quite know exactly how you describe it, but a kind of nice, warm, dark fruits colour. Let's call it that. They've got an official name for it, I'm sure, but check the show notes out and Mizzy will actually give you the proper name of the colour. Really good looking, fully automatic movements in these. Moser in-house automatic movements. Not, oh, it's small, we can only put a quartz in it. None of that nonsense. It's a proper, full-scale Streamliner. Full bracelet. Everything about it is what you expect from Streamliner, just shrunk down a little bit, and they were super cool. And then we got to see the one that we did talk about. Oh my goodness. The full black ceramic on a full black ceramic Streamliner bracelet.
Ah, they call it anthracite.
They call it
but
anthracite. It's definitely, I mean, anthracite's one of those colours that some brands define as greyish and some are much more towards black. I think it's just one or two notes beyond dark black. Blacks, I guess. The exclusion of all lights.
Call it a charcoal, because it's a matte black. If it was glossy, if it was Vanta black, it would be deep, deep, deep. Yeah. But the fact that it doesn't have any, it absorbs the light and kind of scatters it a little bit, which gives it the greyness. But anthracite, talking about cars and things like that, we know what anthracite is, gunmetal grey, things of that ilk. This is really pushing into the blacks. But again, we got to have a look at this, play with this. So they did ask us to wear a glove. Sometimes we did, sometimes we didn't. But this was the one that we talked about in the show where we're talking black, we're talking with a red fume dial. Again, they explained how they produced this, how they melted it, they waited for it to set, then they remelted it to make the fume just gradually move out as more of a gradient. and it was like the Terminator's eye. I'm not sure if it's my favourite. I thought in the press pictures it would take centre stage. It would be my favourite, obviously, apart from the Memeliner. But I'm not too sure, because seeing it in real life, it was really good. But then they had these pump watches. So they just confuse everything. You know, they bring out too many good things. So here we are at the end of day 2. Thanks to the magic of editing, we're going to be recapping what we did today. And it was interesting because we met some people we have known for a long time, but in a different setting. For instance, first place we ended up was at Coram. We used to love going to Geneva Watch Days, not watching Wonders, and catching up with the team there because they always had something new, something invigorating. Just it caught us unawares every single time. But there has been some kind of change, a buyout, a takeover, something like that, and things are a little bit bland.
Well, yeah, they're back in Swiss ownership now. They are all reformed, however we want to describe it, reorganised as a company. And yeah, we were always a bit excited to go and see them. They were kind of engaging. They were always wanting to talk to us, show us some cool things. The Bubble, the Admiral, a whole load of those classic models that people associate with that brand. And don't know you, Rikki, but it just felt a little lacklustre.
They gave no fuck. That's the bottom line. We went to the booth. Now, we tell it like it is. That's what we do on the show. We don't sugarcoat anything. And we were quite excited to see what's happening because when a brand's taken over or it's been bought out, whatever it may be, for instance, Julius Nordan and GP, they did their own thing. They had a management buyout and then they went crazy. It was fantastic and it still is. With these guys, we really hoped that would be the case and they ignored us. We turned up at the booth, we get taken to one of the press rooms and we walked in, nobody spoke to us, there was a whole load of watches lying around that all looked pretty insignificant, duplicates of things that perhaps are out there from Bon Mercier or Maurice Lacroix, and then there was the standard, is it the Golden Bridge, something like that, where it had all the movement parts down the centre, but it's stuff we'd seen before, nothing invigorating, nothing captivating, nobody spoke to us at all, we kind of just looked at the stuff, shook our head, and wandered out.
That was pretty much how it went. We went in, as you said, had a sniff, were generally unimpressed, or we had seen it before, nothing new, nothing fresh, nothing to set the world alight. And there's a lot of product out there that, well, it was very familiar, shall we say, this new stainless steel model they have. I think we've seen that before at a significantly different price point, and maybe a more attractive price point than what's been offered from these guys. Sad to see. Hopefully it's early teething troubles, who knows, but it didn't leave a particularly nice taste in the mouth for a first outing after they've been bought over. But hey, you can't win them all.
Wasted opportunity, massive expense to be at Watches and Wonders. We're talking significant outlay compared to what they did previously at Geneva Watch Days where they had a boutique or it was something they owned where they were showcasing to the world. This cost a lot of pennies and it was just wasted. But then we moved on to something pretty cool.
Yes, indeed. And then we went to, well, a brand that's got a big brother called Rolex. And of course, who we're talking about is Tudor. And we went in, I think, to be fair, knowing it was going to be Tudor, good quality watches, good value for money, good offering, much more generally accessible than many Rolexes. And we thought, well, we've seen some pictures, we've seen little sneak peeks. Are we that excited? Not sure. Let's wait and see. And actually, to be fair, we were more blown away than we thought we were going to be. There was a couple of things that we thought, this is very good. The ceramic one, I knew certain aspects of this black ceramic watch. This is the new ceramic bracelet they brought out. We're going to float Rikki's boat because, as we know, he likes wearing black things. But it was much better in real life than either of us thought, both in feel, touch, build quality, everything about it. A lot of watch for the money.
Looked plastic in the images. And we thought, with the might of Rolex behind the scenes, paying what would be the outlay for the marketing, the development, the rendering, the photography, if that's what they were showing, it was going to be either as good as that, maximum, or it was going to be lesser. But when we went through the standard rigmarole process of watching their presentation on their big screen, which hasn't really changed much in the last few years, I thought, okay, I'm preparing myself to be whelmed. Then they passed the watches out, and there was a blue watch. It was a smaller dial, it was a smaller case, but it didn't appear that small. Then we got a hold of the ceramic number, and obviously I have one of the original OG ceramic numbers from Tudor, the Fast Rider chronograph. But this one, it was, everything about it worked. I thought it looked plastic in images. In real life, it didn't. The dial worked. It looked as if it was a monocoque, as if it was just one piece of material and everything carved out. And obviously the dial is not ceramic, it's made of some other material, but it all came together. And this clasp, this tiny little clasp on the back that is almost milled out of the bracelet, then the bracelet itself, everything worked well. I was actually overwhelmed.
Yeah, it was a really good watch. I'm not the biggest fan of all this kind of black watch thing going on, and it was definitely black. We're not talking anthracite, we're not talking grey. black bracelet, black case, but the dial had this weird hue to it. It kind of caught the light, and I think it just, for want of a strange thing to say about a black watch, it lightened the watch up a little bit. It wasn't just like midnight black.
Sunray black.
Yeah, it was weird. You have to see it in real life. I don't think any picture from anyone's ever going to do justice to this watch. It feels great in the hand. I mean, it doesn't feel like ceramic, but it also doesn't feel like metal, and it definitely doesn't feel like plastic. It's a really nice watch. Really, really good watch. And the blue Black Bay, I think it might have been a Black Bay 58, might be wrong there, but it was a smaller of the Black Bays, a little bit of a rework, slightly thinner in the case. And the blue it's a blue that will punch you in the face. There was no subtlety about the blue, but it was really good. Bezel and the dial going on there. Great looking blue. And they've kind of refreshed, I think, all of the royalty range. Can't remember all the names. What is it? The Royals. They've now, I think, possibly got all their manufacturer movements, Meta certification. They've kind of upped the game just in terms of the internal spec levels of all these watches. Really good looking wee range of watches there. Some of it for sure is more just iterative. That's kind of what you expect from Tudor and Rolex. They're not known for their grandiose fluctuations. But then where did we get off to after that? After we'd seen Tudor, we went to visit.
It turned out to be Raymond Vale. They are celebrating half a century, 50 years in business, and it's a brand that we've talked about, we have spoken to. I bought one of their watches, and I never buy any watches because we get them for free to play with and then send back. But I bought one of their Freelancer Pop editions a couple of years ago, titanium, turquoise as they would call it, put it on an aftermarket strap, everyone hates it, but they had some cool stuff last year. It was the Takata range. We got some of them to have a look at, did a review, talked about them in the show. And yeah, they've been in touch ever since, and they really were keen to see us today. We couldn't get them in the morning because we got held up somewhere else, but by the time we made it back into Pal Expo to Watches and Wonders itself, we managed to rearrange a few things and we got to see them. And I'm so glad we did, even though it was a bit of a truncated timetable. We only had about 15 minutes instead of the usual half hour. We got to see an extremely special edition that we probably shouldn't talk about because it's already gone.
Well, we shouldn't. And before we go on, we should clarify, when Rikki says everyone hates it, they don't mean the watch, they mean the aftermarket strap that he's put on it, just to clarify things. But yeah, it's their 50th anniversary. Bit of a sobering thought for me that I'm actually older than that whole brand is, but that kind of was something that drove home when I got to find out that they are younger than I am, but that was depressing. But yes, they brought out an anniversary piece. They're a brand that's known for great value product at the end of the day. You know, they're delivering predominantly in the, let's say, 500-600 euros into the 3,000-ish euro category. That's their main playground. Some really great looking dressy watches, a few sportier numbers, but they brought out this anniversary, I think they call it the 50, because, well, it's the 50th anniversary. And they found some vintage, I think it's Valjoux calibers. They completely renovated them. It's a column wheel chronograph, amazing sector-ish dial with lots of different layers and kind of textures going on. Classy, super classy looking watch. They made very few of them, and they, well, informed us sadly they had sold out almost instantly. And we thought, well, this is a lot going on here, because it was a stainless steel case, but if I remember rightly, I can't remember if it was white gold or platinum, white gold bezel on it. So nice smooth bezel, very subtly done, not kind of in your face. Lots of watch, and I was thinking, I think this is going to be probably pushing 5 figures, maybe just over that. But no, I think it was around the 7,000-8,000 euro mark. So no wonder they all went, because let's just say there's a few other chronographs out there that could have learnt a lesson by what this was offering in terms of value for money. Whoever got those watches, I'm a little bit jealous, because it's a great looking watch. And we saw, yeah, a few of them.
But there's more, as Billy Mays might say. Because although that was sold out and that was shown first, they should have kept that one. They showed us the rest of the range, new things, and we've got to be super careful because some of this was embargoed and they only told us at the very end. So yeah, let's not shoot our load a little bit too soon here. But if it's not already out just now, some of the stuff that's coming out in the next couple of months will blow your socks off. Talking about great value for money, something that wasn't to do with Watches and Wonders, but somebody we met was Jake, who works for lots of different brands. Can't remember them all, but the one he came to see us today about was Nodus. So there's a watch that we have that we were going to be checking out, showcasing on the show shortly. So stay tuned for that, because it's a titanium number with Cerakote, different colours on the top, a fantastic strap, and it's about $600 USD.
Yeah, and it's also a little reminder that we should probably always just look what's actually in front of us, because me and Rikki were going, what's this? Is it steel? Is it titanium? We're not entirely sure. Tapping it, trying to read the very small print on the case back without actually realising that there's a huge word that said titanium in the middle of the dial in the front of it. But anyway, it's a titanium
That's
watch.
for the future.
That's for the future.
That's
Great
for the future.
looking watch. So after that, we went to visit, well, someone that we visited and got a good kind of lowdown on. First time properly looking at them was over at Dubai Watch Week. But we went to visit the guys at Cross Studio, and there's a bit of change afoot. Well, there is and isn't change afoot. The name that will appear in the dial will change over time. Still doing what they do, but there's a couple of anniversaries coming up. They do some pretty innovative things, let me put it like that. There's not a lot regular and normal about these watches, other than they're round and they tell the time, of course. But yeah, pretty cool watches. And I know there's a few collaborations they've done that, well, you know, they were pretty cool, to be honest. It's
a strange one, because the name Cross Studio doesn't mean much to me. They appeared out of nowhere in my eyes a couple of years ago, and they started 50 yards down the road compared to everybody else, because they were doing collaborations with the likes of Harry Potter, different studios, Star Wars, Mandalorian. They had all these things, and I'm thinking, have I missed something here? Because I don't remember them existing. And suddenly they've got some of the biggest Disney. They've got some of the biggest players involved with them. And they were creating these works of art, miniature sculptures on a dial, central tourbillons, all kinds of stuff. And we grabbed a hold of them at Dubai Watch Week, and we had a real in-depth chat. And we were going to be doing a show with them and producing some content with them. And they said, some changes are afoot, so let's just put a pin in that. And I'm glad, because they have now taken the main man and put his name on the dial, because the people that were buying the watches, the collectors, they knew him from working on various different projects with various different houses over the past X amount of decades. And I think you mentioned an anniversary there, so it's 20 years of him creating a certain type of movement that they're going to be bringing back, refreshing. So, no, really, really good what they're doing. They gave us a bit of a lowdown, they showed us some stuff, and then they told us the price. And price has been one of the key points that we've been talking about at this show, because some brands are like, yeah, 130,000 Swiss francs. Yeah, 370,000 Swiss francs. These guys were doing these crazy tourbillons, super limited edition, the best of the best quality. And I think one that was encrusted with diamonds was about 90,000. And the normal one wasn't. It was cheaper.
And let's be straight, it's all relative that we're talking about here. These are still huge sums of money for the vast majority of people. But it just strikes me that this year, more than ever, the prices are all over the place. Like, you're hearing a number and maybe in your head we're going, well, it's probably going to have this, this and this. And you go, oh, it doesn't. Or they tell you what the spec is and you go, oh, it's going to be insane money. And it's high, but not as insane as you might think it would be. And I think a point that was made by them was, these are very small production pieces. Yes, you're paying because it's low volume, high artisanal workload. And let's say there's a few brands that are less artisanal, that maybe have some punchy price points. It's a bit all over the place. I think that's one of our takeaways from it. You know, we've been looking for innovation, brands doing things that are a bit different, trying to move things forward, or are trying to bring better value. And some are doing it much better than others. Maybe that's one way to put it. You know, you can't have you win all the ways. But yeah, let's see. Anyway, great to see what they were doing. Some really cool things. For features for me, you know, there's no crown on these watches. There's a kind of little fidgety spinner on the back that you turn to wind the watch up. And there's a little smooth finished, almost hidden concealed button on the case. You press it, and then you go into time setting mode. Only really Resonance is the other brand that's got something kind of similar in a way.
Are you sure you're not being about freaky here?
Freaky, that's a good point, actually. Yep, that's a very good point. The Freak's got that on it as well, but it's definitely one of the lesser seen ways of manipulating time and winding the watches up. Although, you know, we've now seen something that you pump like a sneaker that we talked about that you can. Anyway, moving along, we went from there. I think we've covered them because check out probably towards the back end of the year when hopefully we're lining up to get them onto the show to tell us actually the whole story, because I think it's worth telling. And as I know a lot of you enjoy listening to people with their tales, not just here's a product, it's this size, buy it, the actual tale about it. And this guy's got stories to tell. He's got a long storied history with brands. But anyway, moving along from that, we then went to visit, well, a newcomer to this show. We have seen them a lot. They're one of the biggest brands in the world, and AP have graced Watches and Wonders with their presence. And they have brought along, well, what they usually do. They tend to not really do product focus. They tend to do brand storytelling, narrative telling. If you listen to any of our episodes about Dubai Watch Week, they had a fairly significant pavilion. I think that would be one way to describe it. It was definitely not a small facility. And it was a big museum. That's really what it was. It was telling the story of the brand, what they've done. You got to see lots of historical pieces from early on and lots of things that aren't just what everyone remembers. Oh, it's a Royal Oak. All the other stuff they talk about. And they definitely had that there as well. But of course, it is Watches and Wonders. And as well as being a show where the public can, of course, attend and press and media can attend. But also it is it's a retailer show. Retailers go to see the new product that they're going to be selling over the coming year. So we got to see some product. And they're always a brand that's much more approachable and friendly than I think people maybe give them credit for.
They sit in my head as unobtainium, which is really odd considering the privileged position that we find ourselves in through the podcast and the access that we have to brands, CEOs, creators, developers, founders, etc. But when we went to see them in Dubai, they were open-armed. When we saw them today, it was the same person that we spoke to. We went in and I don't know what was wrong. I think I was either tired, I was too caffeinated, because I definitely hadn't had any alcohol at that point. But we went in and the room had all these watchmakers down one side with a bench, and then there was this gap on the other side. And instead of going in and saying, hello, how are things going? I just went a bit crazy. And I just ran down. I said, everybody, high five. And everybody put their hand out. And I just ran down and went, do. Then all the other journalists came in behind me. And they all did the same thing. Yeah. So it reinvigorated the day. It got people a bit more hyped up because we started to dip. These big expos, they're a little bit like going to Las Vegas, going to a casino. There are no windows. There are no clocks. Everyone's got a watch at least or two. But I don't know, maybe pumped in oxygen, so you don't know what the time is, you don't know what day it is, you don't know if there's daylight outside. This kind of pumped us back up, and it just set the rapport for speaking to these people, finding out more about them, and looking at these crazy complications. They had like perpetual calendars, they had the new code 1159s, they had all these intricate dials. Then they had the offshore divers, then they had the ceramic numbers, so we got a good in-depth, I don't know, broad spectrum look at what AP are up to. And there's a lot of the same. Then a little bit like Rolex, they do drip feed in little changes and little upgrades here there that we're quite keen to point out.
Yeah, they had their jumping hour model that we talked about, possibly a couple of months ago when they'd first released it. That was there. Really nice to get to see that in hand. I mean, AP know how to do finishing, and that watch is beautifully finished. No two ways about it. Probably the most APs of the most current releases that you're going to find in any one place in that room, and they were free and easy. Try them on, handle them. None of this, oh, you need to wear gloves and please be careful. It was, yeah, do you want to see it? I'll go grab it. Let me grab it for you. Let you try it on. Put it on your wrist. What do you think? And actually, really nice to see them engaging with, what are you wearing? Oh, can I have a look at that?
Dave was teaching. This is terrible. The watchmakers from AP are all crowded around, and they said to Dave, oh, what's that you've got there? What's that on the wrist? And Dave says, this is a Tourbillon.
It was good. It was a moment in time. But yes, we had to do it. And well, and they actually said, oh, can we look at it? And they were. And it wasn't cursory. They were genuinely engaged people. Really enjoy seeing these guys every time. And as you said, the lady that actually had taken us round the tour in Dubai, she was there as well. And she recognized us immediately. And she's like, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Some of this stuff's the same, some's different. Let me just take you to stuff that's different. Just being efficient, being good at what they do. So yeah, always great to see what they do. It reinforced one thing for me. That code 1159, it's a great watch. It got a hard time when they launched it. But genuinely, it's a great watch, especially in those smaller sizes. Anyway.
Oh, shout out time. So, when we were in AP, we went through their little Hansel and Gretel style Wonderland, I would call it, Fantasyland, where they had the bank vault, where they had the old styly trees, greenery with the family tree, hence why it's green. So it was all that stuff. Then we bumped into Andrew Morgan, along with one of the guys from Armin Strom. Can never remember his name, there's two of them. Apologies. And we met them, we had a chat with them, we had a joke and a laugh. Then we met Cat Shoulders from Worn Wound, previously of the 10 and 2 podcast, back in the day with Catelyn. And we just kept bumping into this pair. Neil Duckworth was there. He was absolutely brimming with information about his new watch, which I don't know if it's released yet, but he says that it's just around the corner. And he's got some minor tweaks to it, so we're going to be bringing him onto the show, because he's not been on for over a year, and he's going to tell you about what he's been up to. And just everyone was so excited, elated. We caught up with RJ and the team from Fratello Watches. Again, they're all super nice people. We've met Adrian, and he's super nice.
Yes, Mr. Barker doing his roving reporting about there as well. Yeah, well, we will have forgotten people that we definitely met and said hello to. Apologies because it's late and we're tired and we're trying to get this content out as freshly as possible. Andrew from Watch Pro, we met him as well. Andrew from Watch Pro was there, and a load of pretty much all of the content creators that you can imagine, whether Instagram, YouTube, all the places. They're all there in some form. And it's amazing. Kathleen from Red Bar, we bumped into her again. We actually got to say hello to her today. Still haven't actually managed to bump into Adam. He's here somewhere. I think we've seen him at a distance. Lots of people here. That's one of the nice things about these shows, is it's sometimes the only chance you get to see these people all year. Anyway, then we had, well, something interesting.
Yeah, we had been approached by the guys at Moser. And it's weird because we had asked this question of them a year ago and they said no chance. Then they emailed us and said, would you like to interview Piers Gasly, Formula 1 driver for
Alpine? Well, BWT, Alpine, such and such, because none of the teams are just one name. They've got God knows how many sponsors. But yes, Alpine, I think, is better known because most of them identify by their car brands. And they're having, well, a best season ever, I think, for those guys. I think he's 7th possibly at the moment now, and he's been getting some real good grid placings. So those guys really coming up. And we've met him once before, kind of on the offing, over at Silverstone a couple of years ago. I think it was roughly 2 years ago we were there. And we got a, hi, how you doing? Nice. But we actually got to spend a little bit of time with him, which means you need to stay tuned, because although that happened on the day we're talking about now, rapidly running out of time for this episode, but there's a follow-up episode because we've got more days to cover, and there will be, well, what Piers Gasly had to say about his journey with watches and Moser, and he had some interesting things to say.
He was cool because we thought we were going to go in, and I remembered him being on press conferences. I remember us posing questions to him when he was at team headquarters. We were at Silverstone, and it was through a video link. And I remember him being really good. He knew what he was talking about, but now we are nearly 2 years down the road. He has created his own watch. He has been across to Moser manufacturer many times, and I asked him some questions hoping that he would be media savvy enough to answer them, and he blew me away. Because he's actually a genuine enthusiast. He's not just somebody that wears a watch, gets the press pictures, takes it off and puts his Nautilus on. He's not like that. And when I asked him, what's it like going around the paddock, you're on the starting grid, and all these other guys, it's Richard Mille this, it's Tag that, it's Rolex the other. What's it like being with Moser? Because they're the unknowns. And he just gave us all the information that we needed. So we'll keep that one up our sleeve for the next episode. But that is pretty much the first couple of days of the show as we saw it. Yeah, we haven't covered Vastron yet, we haven't covered GLC, we haven't seen them yet. We wanted to give you the boots on the ground, what has been happening. Can you hear Dave sniffing?
Dave's getting a cold, stroke, hay fever, stroke, being inside
hopefully
too much.
A stroke as well. They won't have to put up with it any longer. But anyway, that is the end of this episode. Check the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, links in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, it's in your podcast player. Have a look at the Instagram, because I'm pretty sure Simona is helping out now, and Miziel and the rest of the team. I can't even name them all. I am too tired, but the entire Scottish Watches team are busy beavering away, and we're not talking about Nico Leonard this time. And that is pretty much it.
Well, yes. So, talking of that, we'll get beavering away to get ready for the next 2 days, which involves us eating some food and going to sleep. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening.
You tell Dave doesn't do the outro. Do you want me to step in, Dave? Here's how we do the outro. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you again soon.